There we go. Well, he's walking up. Can we please give it up for Al? Al Ramadan. Let's give it up for Al Ramadan, please. So thank you for being here. Thanks for coming in.
It's a pleasure. Great to meet everybody. And
you know,
I got a thought for you as well. So.
Oh, good. You know what's cool is I read Al's book probably 5 years ago, and it floored me. It was just, I hope you all get the opportunity to read it. We sent it to all of you. I would suggest read it. You read it? Those that read it, would you suggest it?
Yes.
It's a 10. And it just gives you a different perspective on what you're building and what you're working for. All of you in here are creating something, found something, you're massively successful, you wouldn't be in this room. And Al gives you just a different perspective. And then I picked it up again about 6-8 months ago, and I read it again through a completely different lens now that we started Mastermind and where we're going with that. And I look forward, Al and I will be working together for sure this year. But it just hit me in such a way that I got the entire team to read it. And we have shifted so much in our company because of this book. And I'm so excited to have you here. It's cool to read a book and then bring it to life and have the man that helped create it here. So
well, thanks for having me.
I'll read a quick little bio and then we'll get right to it.
Oh, geez, really?
I mean, let me just do this. I want to give you some, Al isn't just someone who studied how businesses grow. He's someone who's helped legendary companies create their own markets and dominate them. He obviously co-created Play Bigger, which has become the go-to book for anyone who wants to stop competing and start leading. But here's what makes Al truly next level. He's a multi-entrepreneur, a category design pioneer, and one of the brilliant minds behind Play Bigger Advisors, helping multi-billion-dollar companies like Salesforce, Snowflake, and Qualtrics break out of crowded markets and define their own space. It could go on, but I'm just excited to get to the questions and have a little fun.
Me too.
So once again, let's give it up for Al.
Thank you, guys.
All right. So Al, this is a room, and you've been in rooms like this of high achievers, mostly entrepreneurs. We have a few leaders in the group, but today I think mostly entrepreneurs with great companies, startups. Some people have exited, now they're back in it to start their second thing.
Didn't learn the first time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Can't get over it.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just jump on the origin of Category Kings. In the book Play Bigger, you talk about how legendary companies don't just compete, they create and dominate their own category. What's the first crucial step in spotting an opportunity to be a brand new lane, a swimming lane, a brand new category?
The way to answer that is, you were talking about the origin story. We meet about 150 companies every year, and we work with 4 or 5 of them. And we've been doing that for more than a decade. So add that up and it's like 1,500 people, a little bit similar to what Tony was saying. And most founders walk in the door saying, I've got this problem, I'm kind of stuck in this existing market, you know? And, you know, you just talked about Qualtrics, and Qualtrics, when we first met with Ryan Smith, he said, I'm stuck in the survey market, and I'm being called Survey Monkey on steroids, right? So they all come in, when I say they, most founders come up when they first present, they sort of say, I'm stuck in a market. And you have 2 choices, compete in that market or create a new one. And what we know is the companies that create the new ones some of them go on to become category kings, and they take 76% of the market cap of the entire market. This is in tech, so I'm not sure it works exactly the same in your worlds, but 3/4 of the market cap people goes to one company, and everyone's fighting over the rest. And the more important thing is that the company that becomes the category king or the category queen sets the rules and the blueprint for that entire market. So the game's rigged against you if you're coming in late. And so, back to your question, most founders come in saying, I'm stuck in this market, or people are putting me in this market. They call me a management consultant. You know, in Play Bigger, in our sort of origin story, people couldn't figure out whether we were McKinsey & Company or Bain and Company or an advertising agency or what? They just like, you got like lots of hats you wear, right? And we play bigger, and the book was part of the development of this, created this new category called category design. That's what we do, right? And all of a sudden it made sense.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm going to ask a couple questions, and maybe I thought we'd have some fun today. Maybe we'll pick somebody and kind of.
Yeah, let's go.
Because being on the call with you, Al, was just, you could tell, like Barry, if I'm going to do live events, you want to go to Barry because she's been so many of them. What I love about reading the book and then it come to life talking to Al, you said you had a feeling within 5 minutes. There were certain questions you would ask. He knew in 5 minutes if this was the opportunity, this was someone you wanted to work with or had the potential to be a category king. And that's just from intuition of doing it over and over again. Yep. And I definitely know we have some in this room. I wrote down common missteps. What's the biggest mistake you see businesses make when they think they're building a new category, but they're really just competing in an existing one?
It's the product-led mindset, which is, I'm going to make a better product. As soon as someone says to me, I'm going to make a better product or a faster product or a cheaper product, I know they're competing in an existing market, right? So that's the flag, the first 5 minutes. If someone walks in saying that, a lot of engineers do that. Any engineers in this room? Okay, a few engineers. They tend to come in with that mindset, you build a better mousetrap, they will come kind of thing. So that's one big challenge. The other is not being comfortable setting an agenda for a market. You have to be the evangelist of the problem to become you did it so beautifully in your story. Your origin story is like, how do you come from rags to riches? I felt it. I know the problem. I know what you're facing, and therefore you're empathizing with people about that problem. And then people think, oh, geez, if he knows the problem, he knows the answer. It's just the normal thing. So don't be afraid to get out over the front of your skis. Don't be afraid to be the one that does evangelize that problem, because that's what people connect to. It's not the solution, it's the problem that people connect with. What problem are you solving?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that it's not the product. You said the category design is about the storytelling, right?
Totally.
A big chunk of it, right?
Yeah, and if you've read the book, we have a narrative style. You were talking about your narrative styles. We have one that's called a point of view, frame the problem, talk about what we call the villain, name something that's going to be the villain in the story, talk about the consequences of the villain showing up, explain that it doesn't have to be this way, there's a vision for the future, talk about your product, talk about the outcomes, and then have a click to action. I mean, it's not unlike the infomercials, It's not unlike the things you were talking about. We didn't invent it, you guys did. We just adapted it. It's called a point of view, and it's an incredible narrative structure that really helps. And you were talking about Gigi. Play Bigger has it's trained its own AI model on more than 100 engagements that we've done over the last 15 years. And it can now create a point of view in a minute or two.
Would it be hard to explain a point of view in a short period of time?
Oh, sure.
I would love for you.
Do you want me to, do you want me to do one?
I would love that. You want to do one with somebody here?
Yes. Yeah. Who wants to go? Yes, sir. Can I ask you 3 questions? Yes, sorry.
Yeah, cool.
Apologies.
Yes, please.
What's your name?
Sean Callaghy.
Hey, Sean. Hi. So I want you to answer 3 questions for me. So the first one is, what problem does your company solve?
We are solving the problem of people doing business incorrectly.
Okay. And who has that problem?
Everyone.
Everyone in business or everyone in the world?
Everyone in the world.
Okay. And the third problem is...
In a capitalist structure.
Okay. And the third problem is, what are the consequences of that problem? How does it manifest in a business? Like, what's the cost?
People make too little money and spend too much time, and they're unhappy and unfulfilled.
Cool. So what you heard there, those 3 simple questions, we have about 15 of them that we ask our companies when we run our thing, but those 3 are the primary ones. And for those of you who don't know, venture capital itself was created by this guy called Don Valentine, and he was of the view that it wasn't about the product, it was about the market, understanding exactly what you just answered, the problem, who has it, and what are the consequences. Because if you multiply those things together, you end up with what's the potential for this thing. So let's go through a point of view then. So you would work from those comments that you just made, you would work on framing the problem about that businesses are facing, unprecedented change these days. This is framing the problem part of the story. And that, there are just some things that have to get done. But the problem is you either don't know how to do it. I'm not sure what you talk about, but I'm just framing it for you. The problem is that they're not being done correctly because of, and there'll be reasons, people out of unskilled, or they don't have the tools, or the environment's not right for them, whatever it might be. And then the consequences are literally billions of dollars being lost every day, billions of lives being impacted, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't have to be that way. We have a vision where businesses operate and function properly and with the right infrastructure and the right capabilities within them. And let me tell you about our product. What's the name of your product?
My company's named Unblinded.
Unblinded. Okay, so let me tell you about the Unblinded platform and explain, and it would hit all of the key problem points. And then I would have 3 of your customers, we don't need to do it now, that said, yes, by implementing the Unblinded infrastructure, we were able to deliver X, Y, Z ROIs. And then if you'd like to, do your unblinded test or run your unblinded assessment, click on this button. We'll take a look at your company and tell you whether you're a customer. That there is a point of view.
I just asked our team to send me ours. One of the reasons I almost hesitated asking Al to do it, it is a process that he brings you through in the book. That is we went through it in our company, and it took us about 14 weeks to narrow it down, because you get different opinions on who you are as a company, who are you, what is the problem you solve. And I want to get ours, I'll have it in a minute, I'll tell you what we came up with. But it is a process I would suggest all of you go through. It's unlike anything else, because the main, I'm gonna share mine here in a minute. And we got close because I want to work with Al directly, and I think we came a long way. So I look forward to working with you on it.
But can I just say one thing just before you? So what we just did there was obviously just a sort of a rapid test of this. And to Dean's point, you're not really trained on answering what problem do you solve. Most founders that we talk to when you first asked that question did exactly what you did, which was like do a blink. It's like, and then you sort of have a shot at it, right? You're going to take a few times at solving that problem, right? Or answering that question. And that's true for all of the other sort of steps in the process that you talked about, Dean. And it's in the book. There's a sort of a layout of, if you want to do it there, we're also bringing out this AI companion that you can try if you want to do that. But the idea is exactly that, to take you through this process. It spits out this point of view. And the great thing about a point of view is it becomes the source code for all of your ads.
Yeah.
It becomes the source code for all of the way that you sales decks show up, investor decks. Like everything is derivative of this one thing, right?
Well,
which is really cool.
And thank you, Sean, for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you, Sean.
I'd love to, I'm going to mess with you a little bit, Pace, too, because I just know the business that you're in. What the other thing it did for me, and it's hard to explain because we're just grabbing pieces. I wish everybody, if you all read it, I get it, you will eventually, is when we started going around to just our we have 130 employees, and we started going around to management and people in the company and said, who are we? I would have thought that everybody knew who we were.
Right.
I thought we had this culture that everybody got it, and we got so much variety of who we are that one of the biggest things for me is if we create this, and I think it's suggested in the book, we laminated it after weeks and weeks of working on it. We laminated it and mailed it to 100% of our employees and said, please put this in a place that when you make decisions for this company, when you think through the lens of our company, when you write ads for our company, when you hire for our company, please refer to this because this is who we are. And the cool part is we let a lot of people in the company give feedback. Then we narrowed it down to about 6 people and then down to 4 who made the final decision. But we got feedback. We weren't being dictators. We were feeling it. And you guys cool if I read what we created? So our category we came up with is guided business creation. And after a long category of thinking about this is looking at why most, I'm just going to give you mine. Why do most, I'm picking on you, Pace, why do most real estate investors fail or potential real estate investors? For me is they're not guided. They get on points, they get stuck, they can't get off the blank page, they can't get through a problem. So we have obsessed and spent 3 years and millions of dollars creating AI and tools that guide you through the whole way. There's never a place to get stuck. So that's why we went down the road of guided business creation. Our point of view, we said our point of view, everyone deserves the guidance to transform their knowledge into a successful business. By combining AI-driven assistance, streamlined implementation tools, and world-class education, creating a thriving knowledge business is now accessible to everyone. What's the problem we solve? Creating a successful knowledge business is time-consuming, complex, expensive, and overwhelming. Our focus is pioneering the future of personal entrepreneurship. Our platform is the ultimate co-pilot, simplifying everything of creating a successful knowledge business, faster, smarter, and more affordable. And then our messaging, taking control of your time, income, fulfillment, and future has never been easier. By transforming your skills, your experience, your passions into a thriving knowledge business, you can create a life you deserve by letting your knowledge lead the way. And again, that doesn't mean that's what you guys do. I'll send you this, for example, and I'm sure Al's done 1,500 of these, if not 15,000, could help us make even better. We just wanted to jumpstart before we decided to work with him. But that alone, when I did a company all meeting, I watched the team transform into this is who we are. This is the problem we solve. Holy crap, this is who we are. And now whenever we talk, we say, hey, did you check the point of view before the meeting? Yes, I did. And they come in with this frame of reference. And like Al said, we might want to exit from Mastermind someday. It's the first company Tony and I are building from scratch that we're building that it could exit. It's a SaaS, it's a membership, it's growing exponentially. Our people are sticking twice as long as most of our competition. Like, we got all these ingredients happening. And now if we ever build a deck or Al helps us with becoming even a greater category king, whatever we decide on that piece of paper, the reason I'm so passionate he's here, I'm doing more talking than him, I just want to share with you, is it streamlined our company to all be on the same page. And if we ever build a deck to share, it'll be based off of this. When we do marketing, it's based off this. The ad we talked about, the Super Bowl ad, we got to look back at this because this is who we are. Right. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah, no, that point of view. So there's a couple of things I'd love to add to this point of view. You'll notice he started with the solution, then went to the problem, then went back to the solution. I don't know if you sort of noted that, but I would start with the problem. And then one of the things I was waiting for was like, there are 197,000 businesses in the United States, of which 7% become profitable and successful. That's an epidemic. I'm just making this completely up. I just said there's 197,000
That's it?
Yeah, no.
I'm just making the number up. You tell me what the number is.
I think the number's high. I think you're high.
You think I'm high or low?
I think you're way high.
What?
Far more than 7% of business. I think that
Let's do it together.
less than 7% of businesses succeed. It is an epidemic. You're absolutely correct. I think the number's way lower than 7%.
Oh, way lower.
Way lower than 7% that actually are successful.
Yes.
Okay, so let me do it
What
again.
you're saying and more. Yeah.
Thank you. There are 12,685,000 companies in the United States, okay? And here's the story. 3% of those go on to be successful ongoing companies. That's an epidemic, people. That's a problem. And you know what?
Well,
Well, hang on.
Yeah.
I'm just setting up the problem. Did I get the hook right? Did I get you? Are you guys leaning forward?
Yeah.
Okay. So I must know the answer. It's like, hey, any of you guys runners in the room? Anyone run? Okay. So you will have gone through this, right? You've been running, and all of a sudden, IT band's kind of getting tight, and all my knees really hurting, and everything else. You go to the doctor, and she says,
stop running.
No. She says, what's going on? It's like, oh, I got a really sore knee, doc. She's like, what's up? It's like, well, when I do this, it hurts. Oh, it really hurts when I do that. She said, what happens when you do that? It's like, oh, it doesn't hurt. What about this? A little bit. What about that? A little bit. You're sold. You're done. Because she knows what your problem is and what you're feeling, so she must know the answer. So again, I played out that sort of hook that I just used there, which was framing the problem, right? I didn't even talk about the problem. I just framed it. You're all leaning forward like, Jesus, is that right? 3% out of what did I say? 18 million or whatever it was? You're already leaning forward. I must have the answer. It's just human nature right? So that's what I was saying is I'd love to, and you've got every right, if anyone's got a right to do that, he has. He and Tony for sure have, right? To stand up and say, this many companies, this percentage, it's an epidemic. So you connected with that word. And then the consequences of that are livelihoods get lost, this much money's gone, the companies go out of business, blah, blah, the productivity's down, GDP's down. Like you could make this into a $1 trillion problem in 3.5 minutes, I think. And then you talk about, but it doesn't have to be this way, people. It doesn't have to be this way. We have a vision where every company has the guidance that it needs to be successful. And today we're introducing...
It's what we all do, most of us in here.
You guys do this naturally.
It's associated to your company.
Right. You frame and then you become, and that's what I was talking about before, you become the leader, you become the authority on the problem. Your research on how many companies are created, what percentage of them are unsuccessful, how much that costs the economy, all of the stuff, you can get paid research to do that for 50 grand. Now you're the authority on a problem that is a giant problem. That's a category.
Yeah, and what it shifted in my head, Al, what you shifted is, think about it, what Mastermind does, I'm just using it as an example, we do some of the similar stuff WAP does. We have a platform where you could build anything, limitless. We have similar things that what ClickFunnels does, and what Kajabi does, and what Thinkific does, and what Teachable does. But I watch a lot of times, and Russell's a dear friend, but a lot of times they compete on what they do. We're faster, we're quicker, we provide services, we're tech driven, we have. I didn't want to compete in that because we really aren't that. We do work really hard. Again, I know some of you in this industry, in this room, do the same thing. We work really hard with new people to hold their hand, to give them assistance, to overcome limiting beliefs. When they say they can't do it, we're like, screw you, we got your hand, let's do it together. When they say I'm unsure, we go, no, you're enough, you know enough. With our help, you can do this. And the reason we have so many people coming in new and actually becoming successful is because we hold their hand, we guide them. So again, I can't wait to brainstorm with this because I know you can make it better, but I didn't want to say, hey, we have a faster fulfillment and we have better education. Tony and I have been doing it 76 years, it's better. It's like, no, we're gonna guide you and hold your hand so you don't become a shitty statistic. That's different than anybody in our space is sharing right
Correct.
now. No one's talking about it that way.
Correct.
And I think each of you, again, I'm looking at Pace because he's close and I know your business
What do you
well.
do, Pace? Tell me a little bit about it. Tell us, what problem do you solve? And who do you solve it for? Let's start there.
You got to put me on the spot.
Yep.
Well, I just know your business so well, so it's easy for me to pick on you.
Let's go.
There are 500,000 investors in the country that try and start every single year,
Real estate.
and less than 5% of them ever get a deal.
Hey, do you hear that? Is that a hook? Are we all leaning forward? Have we ever invested in a real estate deal that didn't work? Put your hands up if you did. Okay, so now everybody in the room's already leaning forward. You must be the authority on this, Pace.
I am.
Okay, see? Keep going. So now, what's the problem?
The problem is much like the biggest turning point in your life is when you learn how to walk. Somebody held your hand during that process.
Yep.
We do the same thing as your biggest turning point in your professional life. We hold your hand through the process, meaning we use our team, our money, our expertise, our management team to make sure you get your first deal out of the gate, and then we guide you through building your business.
Okay, that's the solution that you just talked about, right? So you set up the problem beautifully, which was like there's an X number of, investors in this environment. This many are only successful. What you would want to add in there is, and by the way, the consequences of that is this much lost money. It's $1 trillion or $5 trillion. It's some giant number that you're going to puke over, right?
What I wrote down actually during my notes is
Yes.
The consequences, blank, blank, blank. I asked, what decisions does my customer make daily? What do they have to turn down on a daily basis because they don't have the free time? Consequences of not being successful in business. So I want to know, how many dance recitals are you turning down? How many things are you turning down?
Beautiful, emotional.
What are the biggest consequences
I
of
love
your
it.
life? What are they missing out on? Et cetera, et cetera. So
You
consequences.
got it. Life consequences.
Yeah, I got to
social
fill that in. And then there's financial ones too. So such great notes already.
Perfect. You got it. That's the architecture right there. And that will play into that become, like we call it the source code. The point of view, once you get it written, and it ends up being a written document, it creates everything from that. You'll create your ads from that. You'll create your your message house for each of the different customer types or use cases that you have. You'll create a sales deck, you'll create an investor deck, you'll create an investor relations deck. It'll drive all of your marketing programs. And the really good ones drive product development too. So what is it you're going to offer? Because what happens with engineers or what happens with people who get excited about technology is they just start building technology because it's fun. And it is fun. I've been a software engineer since I was a kid, right? It is fun. But if it's not funneled at the problem you're trying to solve, it's a waste of money and time. So that's what's so powerful about this. And we call it a market maker's mindset. It's this idea that you are creating a market. You are going to become the spokesperson for the problem. A market is just a number of people who have a problem times the consequences of it, right? So that is the mindset that we're really wanting to encourage you guys to think about is, how do I create a market and how I become the spokesperson for that market? Because if you do, I'm not sure what it's like in your industries, but in the tech industries, 3/4 of the market cap goes to one company. And
then everybody fights over the rest.
Yeah.
And it might be overplayed in your head, but it wouldn't be to us. What's a good example of someone who carved out a category?
Yeah, I'll tell a couple of stories. That's a great one. So the first one I'll talk about is a company called Qualtrics. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Anyone heard of Qualtrics in this room? Anyone use it? Look at that. Okay, great. So you'll get this. So I met Ryan Smith the first time, and Ryan said, "I'm really pissed off." It's like, okay, Ryan, what's up? He's like, "I keep on getting called SurveyMonkey on steroids." It was a more advanced version of SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey anyone heard of SurveyMonkey in this room? Yeah. Okay, so the same number of people. So you'll know that those two companies were competing. They were at about $1 billion market cap each. This is 2016, just after we wrote the book. I was like, okay, Ryan. He said, "Anything else you're pissed off about?" He said, "Yeah. You want to know a funny story? The fastest trip to Betty in the basement is to walk into the CEO's office and say, 'Hey, I want to tell you about market research and surveys.'" He says, "Ryan, I love playing golf with you the other day, except Betty's the person you want to talk to about that." And he didn't want to talk to Betty in the basement, notwithstanding Betty's great. He wanted to talk about a C-level agenda. And so we took them through our process. It took about 6 months in this particular case. This is a company based in Utah, very strongly sales-oriented. His brother Jared is probably in the top 10 engineering leaders in the world. Wrote WordPerfect and then Google Suite. I mean, he's a genius, right? So the two of them were an incredible combination, Ryan on sales and Jared. Anyhow, took them through the process and we said, well, what do you measure with this surveys? What do you measure with surveys, guys? You're doing them all. Experience. Boom. We're measuring the experience somebody has doing something. And in this particular case, it could be a customer, it could be an employee, it could be an experience you have with a product, it could be an experience you have with a brand. And we started to get this idea that there was what was happening and why it was happening. And eventually we worked out that, and I'll use the United Airlines because they were one of the early customers. Flight 1357 arrived on time in New York, check in the box, the operational data is all good. Betty's pissed off in 21B because someone spilled coffee on her. This was the operational data, this was the experience data. You weren't capturing all of the experience data, you thought everything was going great. And so then as we got closer and closer to this, we realized that measuring experience, we called it X data, we gave it a term, and we separated it from O data. And we said measuring experience was really important. And then we said, okay, we need a villain in this story. So we did some research and we found out that 80% of CEOs believe that they're delivering a great to very great experience to their customers. 6% of the customers agree. Is that a hook? I was in the company when Ryan stood up and said this for the first time. The whole room there was 2,000 people in the room, and everyone in the room went, ooh, he knows. He knows the secret, and it's not a good one. Right? So all of a sudden now, Ryan was in the C-suite walking in saying, you probably think you're delivering an incredible experience 80% of the time, right? I'm here to tell you it's 8. You got yourself a problem. And the CEO would lean forward and she'd say, I want to jump on this project myself personally. So that is an example of, I haven't even talked about the solution yet, right? You see, we haven't even talked about solution. That's an example of how a company went from Betty in the basement to C-level, focused on a really strategic agenda. We wrote the S1, which is the filing document. Anyone written an S1 in this room? Anyone? Okay. So it's a filing document that sort of, you have to play out this whole thing. The point of view informs that really well. And we went on to explain that this problem was a $1 trillion problem and that the market cap of this category called experience management, which was the name of the category that we created, was somewhere in the $50 to $60 billion at the time of the IPO. The company went public for $27.1 billion from one. More importantly, SurveyMonkey was still one when they were 27, and Medallia, which was the other competitor at the time, was about 3 billion. And so there's your 76%. They took the whole show just by this move.
So if you equate it to ads, right? Not to oversimplify it, but we've had the same product that's a great product, right? But the different words that describe the product make it more attractive, right? To not oversimplify, but this is the stuff that I was equating when I was reading the book and talking to you. I tell this story about, I did an infomercial with Larry King, and I'd been wanting to do one for him for a long time, did it over a decade ago, and long story short is, it was the same book, it was that book, Millionaire Success Habits. We filmed the infomercial, it bombed, and I was shocked because I knew I had done Larry King style infomercials for years. I obsessed over it for about 3 weeks. I called them and said, I can fly a plane, I'm gonna send a plane back to you, pick you up. I want you just to read the first 2 sentences over to the infomercial. And I switched the first 2 sentences, and that show went on to do $50 million in sales. And what it taught me is Qualtrics company, what they were delivering didn't change at all. What you do doesn't change. It's the category in which you describe what you're doing differently, right? And I know Al is being so polite and coming here and sharing, but I really urge you to read the concept, and if you want to work with Al, that's great too, but read the whole book because there are so many layers that you go, God damn it, I missed that part. No wonder I'm competing. And we all, most of you in this room are amazing at marketing, but we don't take that same marketing to describe what it is that we do. At least I wasn't. And I think I'm one of the best marketers out there, but I wasn't describing my company in a way that I was selling it. Does that make sense? I hope it made sense. Sorry, Al. I didn't.
Yeah, no, I've got another story. This is a fun one. Excuse me. Yes, sir.
You didn't give the solution under that, so they figured out what.
Okay, so good. I was going to say, and instead of having what we call a horizontal survey tool that could be applied to any single use case, whether it's in education or sales or in human resources or wherever it might be, that just became the platform. We called it the XM platform. To your point, Dean, it was fundamentally the same technology. You know, modern SaaS architecture, like all good. But on top of that, we created 4 applications. One was called CX, customer experience. One was called EX, employee experience. Another one was called PX and BX. They were the 4 corners or the 4 applications that Qualtrics then sold. And instead of selling a $50,000 Swiss Army knife that does everything, these were $2 million annual subscriptions for the applications. Their ASP, or the average sales price per year, went up 10x in that time, over a 2-year period, right? So the packaging and the pricing and the positioning of the product itself, the core of it didn't change, but these apps all of a sudden showed up. And that was where the value, and the sales team themselves had to train themselves, to your point, train themselves from selling horizontally to Betty in the basement to walking in the front door at the CEO's office and say, or the customer experience czar's office and say, hey, listen, you've got a real problem here. And this is the scope of the problem. And we went on to do things like, we would offer any company in the world for free to fill out 30 questions about their enterprise, whether it's customer, employee, product, or brand, and we would then give you an estimate of what the actual cost was to your company. and you'd be surprised what numbers people put in. Like big companies put stuff in there, and all of a sudden you walk in as a sales guy, it's like, yeah, you probably don't know this, but your guy is telling us that you're losing about $150 million a year based on this particular problem, right? So that's when that hook, that problem hook, when you get that emotional attachment and everyone in the room goes, oh my God, he knows my dirty secrets, that is a fantastic starting point.
So
Yeah, I'll come back to you in a sec.
So they had the same product as the other 2 or 3 companies. So they changed the box, but my point on that is, did they have to change their software to that, or they just came up with different?
No, they did. So they had to, so like I was saying, they had this horizontal sort of platform that could be applied. It was called the Research or Studio or something like that. And then on top of that, they built these specific applications. So I remember the day Jared came in and he said, okay, team, there was, I forget how many engineers there was, let's say it's 1,000. He said, okay, those 200 over there, you're now on the customer experience app, go build that. That team on EX, and you're on the platform team, you're going to be building this. So there was definitely a reorientation inside of the engineering organization necessary to achieve that. But yes, the pricing, packaging, and positioning was so important because you had a 10x in revenue for basically the same technology.
Right, so they found the different niche that everybody else wasn't going after, and they hit that.
And yes, and we could rabbit hole on this one for half a day. So, but I'm going to come over to this question over here.
Okay, thank you. By the way, this is so simple that I don't know any of it. And I love the things that are broken down in simple terms that are like blind spots. So for us in our business, one of the things that we've never been good at is talking about how good we are at something, okay? So what I noticed with Dean's video, which was awesome, like if I saw that, I know Dean because I just know him. He's a face that is known on social media. Now, obviously, that wasn't the case at the beginning. And so his success is obvious. And so that whole video was focused on his humble background and where he came from and wrote a book and all of those things. But he didn't talk much about his success because, frankly, I know his success. So in a space like what we're in, when we're identifying a problem and I know we've got the solution, do I talk about our credibility and our statistics and our stats? Because they're not going to know who the heck I am.
So can I ask you, what problem do you solve and who do you solve it for?
The problem we solve is other real estate professionals that have a great deal and they can't fund it.
Okay. And is it just for real estate professionals, or
Yes.
is it's just for real estate professionals? Okay. So again, you need the hook here, which is there are 173,000 real estate professionals in the United States. Is that an accurate number, or is it?
I have no idea.
Let's say it's 173,000.
Okay.
Of which X percentage are successful, Y are not.
Yeah, the problem is you've got a great deal and it's too expensive and you can't fund it because we've been there.
Okay, and so there are so many of those that happen over a period in a year, for example, and
Sure,
so
I'll
you'd
get
start
that
to set
stat.
up this epidemic, to think of
Yes.
it that way, that there's this real estate epidemic, which that you're funding all of these deals that shouldn't be funded, or whatever it might be.
Well, the other stat could be there's this many transactions that take place at this dollar amount, and there's only, 10% of the real estate professionals that actually get these deals.
He's already doing it, right? You
Well,
can
it's
see
great.
what's going on, right?
Yeah, see, I understand what you do right now, and we've become friends. We talk all the time. I understand right now what you do more than I have since the day I met you.
Correct.
Like,
Wow.
so cool.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that concept.
Right? Is everyone else getting this, right? You're seeing what's happening here. You sort of break this down to being the most fundamental level, which is the problem I'm solving, who it's for, and then the consequences of that is going to be some valuation. And the way that, who are the financial investors in this room? Is there any financial investor? So you guys correct me if I'm wrong here, but the way most financial investors look at an opportunity like buying your company would be to say, what's the problem? Problem is in real estate, and it's transaction related.
Yeah.
Who has it is the real estate. Okay, so I'm now investing in real estate technology or real estate something, and the consequences of that is X. You multiply those three things together, and that gives you TAM or category potential. It gives you a number. That's the number I gave you with Qualtrics was 60 billion. That's how we did it, right? And so why I'm saying this repeatedly is it's this part of the work that you have to spend your time on, because most of you are already great at telling me what your solution is and how good it is and how many years you've been in business and whatever else. If I don't know what you're doing, I couldn't give a rat's about the rest.
Okay.
I don't care.
Okay.
I might care about you as a person,
right,
like you did with Dean. He's a great guy and he's a really powerful presenter and everything, but like, that's all I care about. But if you said something like, and by the way, we help your son get better grades at school, or the problem is your son's not learning the right way or something like that, and I've got a kid who's got that, I'm right there with you at that point. I'm like, tell me some more, right? So you got to empathize with the problem, and you have to become the authority of the problem. I did it a little bit before when we were talking about your sort of market cap or the scope of your problem. Be the authority. Because then you're like the doctor. It's like, where's it hurt? It hurts. Oh, she must have the answer.
So after you create all that, the problem and everything, and add statistics to the problem, when you go to the solution, do you explain your own statistics and stats, like how much real estate
absolutely
we bought?
So remember the architecture is frame the problem, talk about, name a villain. We got to have a villain, a bad person in the story, the consequences, the vision for the future, the solution, and then the next part after that is what we call the outcomes. And so this is where you would say, and we have processed 4,623 transactions, or whatever it might be, over a period of 15 years, and here's customers X, Y, and Z sort of saying, they were the best guys I've ever used because they helped me do this.
Perfect.
That's it, right there. And that's the narrative structure in the point of view. If you look at the book, or I'm happy to sit down with you and sort of explain this more, but that's the structure. So when you get up at a keynote at a conference, for example, you pull the POV out and you start out by saying, you probably don't know this, folks, but there's 173,000 real estate professionals in the United States, and only 7% of them are actually productive.
Exactly.
Everyone in the room's like, what? How could that be? Is my real estate guy one of those 7%? I'm kind of, all of a sudden, I'm like nervous about what you're about to say.
Love it.
Right?
Thank you.
Yeah. We got one at the front. It's coming.
So, quick question about market making. So, you take, for example, Amazon and the evolution of market making, and this gets extremely confusing for me.
Okay.
So Amazon starts out, and people think that they're selling books, and then Amazon is recreating how people in America and around the world buy things. So, any thoughts on how that evolution? And I was thinking about Pace. Like, Pace has created an army. So, like, Tony Robbins says, like, what business are you in? What business are you really in? What business do you need to be in? So Pace is the market maker of real estate. But what if Pace is like Amazon and started with books? And what else can he do with his army?
Great.
Right. So that concept of like, how do you?
Yeah, we call it category expansion. So the thing that Bezos did so well was he solved the problem of buying a book. Do you remember, anyone remember that back in 1996, 97? When that thing first came out, it was like, what? The whole of like the Library of Congress is online. I can buy any book and it shows up at my door. That's impossible. It was like, I can't believe that's even true. I'm going to try it. So he solved that problem. He did an incredible job. And he called it book retailing, or online book retail, I think was what the actual category was, if I remember rightly at the time. He then realized, oh my gosh, well, if I can do that for books, I can do that for shoes, I can do that for whatever it might be, you can start to see. And he started to, if you remember back in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, you'll see the tabs on Amazon went from books to all of this other stuff showed up. Now he, of course, is, what's the category he's in now? Online retail. It's literally, Costco, retail. And so that is category expansion. That's what we call category expansion. And so the problem, the scope of the problem here was I'm selling books. Now the problem is much bigger, is I'm selling everything, right? So, and that is a absolutely legitimate thing to do, is to continually expand your category, utilizing the capabilities within. One more story about Amazon, which is absolutely fascinating, is they had to create technology to be able to do this and scale at a speed that allowed them to bring all of these other stores on, and then all of the other merchants from outside of Amazon. They created a thing we now know as AWS. They didn't spin it out, but they created essentially a product, a technology product associated with that, superscalar kind of product. That became the big profit engine within the company. They were in 2 categories, online retail and then superscalers, right? So that can happen, and that's totally good. I got one more story for you, just if you wouldn't mind.
Love it.
So one of my best friends called me about 2 years ago. He's from Mars Corporation. Anyone know what Mars is? Anyone have a Mars bar or a Snickers bar in here? Okay. So what aisle in the supermarket do you go to get Snickers bars?
Checkout, right?
Candy. Confectionery. So if you think about it, in a lot of ways, a supermarket is a proxy for the rest of the markets in the world, right? 10,000 to 100,000 products sitting there right in front of you. You can't find one thing. If you didn't have some organizational structure to that, you'd be lost. How would I find a Snickers bar? How do you find a Snickers bar? That's a question for you guys. Which aisle do you go to? What is an aisle then?
A market.
It's a category. Confectionery. So he calls me, this guy calls me and says, we've got a problem. Like, what's up? Mars, incredibly profitable, $50 billion market cap, private company, insanely well run. We're getting killed. It's like, what's up? There's a new aisle. It's like, okay, what's that called? Health and wellness. How do you think Mars bars fits in the health and wellness category? Not so well. There's this company over here called Kind. Anyone eat Kind bars in this room? Okay. So have you looked at the ingredients between a Snickers bar and a Kind bar?
It's almost the same.
Right. So Mars went and bought Kind in 2022. I think it was $15 billion they paid for it. I could be wrong. Maybe it was 1.5. It was some giant number. Why? Because they needed to escape out of the existing market called confectionery and get into the new market called health and wellness. Think about that for a second. They had all the product. They could source exactly the same products. They could make exactly the same stuff, but they had to do this category expansion where they went from the confectionery aisle into the health and wellness aisle. And the ASP, the selling price of the Kind bar, is it more expensive or less than expensive than a?
More.
Yeah, right. So you're getting all of this, right? That's category creation. That health and wellness aisle is its own category. It's a super category, and there's a whole bunch of categories within that, right? And that's your job, is to be that category king in that aisle and create it. And one of the stories in the books, if you've read it, is about Clarence Birdseye. Anyone remember the story Clarence Birdseye in the book? You remember it? So he created what we now know as the frozen foods aisle. He literally did. Back in the 1920s, right? And so we all go into a supermarket thinking, oh my God, yeah, this stuff's existed forever. So every single category that's ever been invented in the world has been created by one person. Think about that. Every one of those aisles in the supermarket has been created by somebody. So if it can be created by them, why can't it be created by you? There's no reason that it can't be. And that's your job. Become the evangelist for the problem, create that category, take 76%, create this incredibly powerful narrative. Go, build your business.
Give it up for Al, everyone. Thank you so much. We appreciate you hanging out.
We could go on for another couple of hours, I think.
Yeah, we sure could.
Right?
Can you hang out a little bit?
Yeah, I'll be around.
That'd be great. You know what we'll do? Let's take a 10-minute break. If you got any questions for Al, maybe you could be more personal. And when we get back, we got Lior coming up.